semiconductor chip shortage, the waiting period for cars, is that going to come down? How the industry dynamics going to play out, considering the chip shortage was turning out to be a big near-term hurdle. Let me welcome on board Hormazd Sorabjee, editor at Autocar India, and this time around he joins us all the way from LA. Hormazd, hi, morning. What takes you to LA this time?
Well, it's the LA Motor Show tomorrow, so I'm here for that. And also, this is the time we do our judging for the World Car of the Year. So, over the last 2 days, I've driven about 20 cars. So, yeah, it's been a pretty hectic 2 days.
Is it an EV which is wearing the World Car of the Year award?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. That result's going to be out in April, but there were some really good EVs over here. Some of them coming to India, like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and really that is the way of the future. And I think more and more people are getting into it. So I think that's really going to accelerate as we go forward.
And that's exactly what I want to talk about as well, Hormazd. Considering, while the near-term hurdle was the chip shortage, just yesterday a note coming in from one of the global brokerages highlighting that Malaysian foundries manpower is now back to 100% in the month of October. Can this really help resolve the semiconductor chip shortage which was playing out across the world?
Well, I think there still is a shortage. I think the worst is behind us, but it's not just an on-off switch where, from one month to the other, it just goes back to normal. There are still constraints. There are still supply issues. And generally, it's not just semiconductors. There's shortages everywhere. I think we're living in a shortage economy right now. Shortage of semiconductors. I mean, a shortage of semiconductors and a shortage of containers. That's become very difficult. That's pushing logistic costs up. And, I think it's even shortage of manpower for certain skilled requirements, especially in the EV space. So I think it is quite difficult from the industry's point of view, because there is demand, but to kind of service and support that demand with adequate supplies is still a bit of a challenge. But I think, the worst is behind us.
But Hormazd, I do want to talk about this a little bit more. Alex joining in as well. And I've seen some of the pictures you've been posting up. Looks really exciting. But on this entire semiconductor issue, I think over the last couple of years, a lot of automakers have realized that they can't work on just in time. And I think you have an insight as to how they've started operating. Even if you have the foundries going back to normal in terms of production, do you foresee that they'll go back to a normal level of production? I know once they iron out those labor issues and all that you were talking about, will it still take a few months to iron those creases out?
I think definitely it'll take a few months, because, this has been such a chronic problem. And it's not just automobiles, it's, across the electronics industry. I mean, I'm here in LA and I'm told that, even to get iPhones, you have to wait. Apple, you have to wait for certain products, which is, something you typically go into a store and buy. So it's really a chronic issue. It's everything today with a circuit board or a chip, is facing this kind of problem. So it's something unprecedented. So really hard to say how quickly it will come back. I still think it will take a while. And don't forget, automobiles is pretty low down in the pecking order for the semiconductor industry. And in India too, there are a lot of structural issues around this. So I think it's going to take some time. And clearly, I think probably it'll be, I would say, first quarter of next year will still be difficult. And then beyond that, we'll see things getting back to some sense of normalcy as far as the whole demand supply issue is.
But Hormazd, in this context, assuming that we're still a few months away from normalcy, how does this affect production schedules? In that, how does this affect the pipeline of products that these major automotive companies have, particularly in India?
Well, I think what we are seeing a lot of them being pushed. At first it was because of a pandemic, now because of, let's say supply chain issues. A lot of companies are pushing. I mean, the Celerio that was to come out a lot earlier from Maruti, which has just been launched, but that's just come out, because what happens is when you launch a new product and you can't build enough of them, that's really, that can really kind of hamper the overall success of the product, because you really want it to be, a hit from the get-go. And if you are launching it and you can't really then service the demand, it can be a problem. So I think this is the problem a lot of OEMs are grappling with, is that when they launch something, they have to be able to produce enough of them. Sometimes they have to sacrifice some other models because there is a finite quantity of chips available right now, very, very limited and constrained. So I think going forward, we will see launches also, getting delayed. It has been happening. And I think really that is the order of the day.
Hormazd, I should say good evening to you, since you're joining us all the way from Los Angeles. It's a good morning from here. This is Nayanthara. Thanks a lot for talking to us about all of these issues. But when we look at the stock markets and what's been happening with the auto companies, what has the street excited, of course, is the ability of the automakers, to pass on price hikes. The second one being about the global supply disruption now getting sorted. And the third one, the EV plans. There's so much that's been said about EV. Ola, in that sense, trying to disrupt the market in India and globally. I know you called it smokes and mirrors last time. Are you more convinced this time round, considering the test drives have also begun?
Well, unfortunately, there have been issues with the product. In fact, we've just reviewed it. It's got the highest number of views on YouTube right now, the Autocar review. And it's trending actually on 24 on YouTube. So it just shows the level of interest in the product. But again, it's not a well-sorted product. There are issues with the product. It's not something the company can go to market with. I think they've been very hurried in this. And, it leads me to the whole issue of, with all these startups. A lot of them don't have that deep expertise. A lot of them are talking, but they're not walking the talk. And that's the whole thing about, these startups is, and the EV story, with the EV narrative is very easy to raise money, but not easy to make money. That's what the legacy players do. And I think this is, I kind of going forward, this is going to be something that is going to come to a head at some point, because, profitability is something that eventually is going to play out. And how these new startups manage that remains to be seen. So, as I said, the EV narrative, it's a great narrative. You have to talk about it because that's what brings the cash in, on hope on the future. But I still think, it's the legacy brands which actually make the profits.
So did you have oats for breakfast like a champion?
I agree with that line. So I think, maybe I would say yes. I think it is a bit early. And, that's why everyone is watching Ola. If Ola messes it up, it will really be bad for the whole EV ecosystem, the EV story. So, everyone's hoping they get it right, just for that. But right now, there are challenges. And frankly, too many promises. And a lot of them haven't been kept as yet.
Just one last follow-up from my point, and I want to go back to what I was talking about in terms of things going back to normal, assuming, of course, that we don't see any major disruptions over the course of the next several months. Could you then say that the next financial year, starting in April, once things are ironed out to a certain extent, could in fact be a spectacular year for the automotive industry, considering that you have strong demand, possibly even pent-up demand at that point?
Well, look, I mean, all the pent-up demand is there, and the indicators are there that people, do want to buy cars. The whole thing about buying a car has taken a new level of importance after the pandemic. People want their own personal mobility. They want their, what I call, their PPE suit on wheels, their little safety bubble. That's definitely there. But, there are, again, challenges. Prices are going through the roof. There are a lot of regulation changes coming. There's this whole transition from IC to EV, which is really putting a lot of cost pressures on OEMs. So it's not easy. There are still a lot of choppy waters. mainly from a regulatory framework, maybe from a cost perspective also. Costs on everything is shooting through the roof. Commodities, logistics, you name it. So it's making motoring not less affordable going ahead. And while we talk about EVs, and that's really the demand has gone through the roof exponentially, largely because of the high fuel prices. That also is still quite expensive. So while the demand is there, for the overall industry, I think it's going to be a lot of challenges still ahead.
Absolutely. Hormazd, thanks so much for joining in, and good evening to you. Certainly, some of us wish that we were there with you to see the vehicles that you are reviewing. But let's stick with the automotive space, and let's talk